Everybody, this is Billy, Ballin' Reach 82 on DK. A couple people told me they wanted me to do a lineup review on my best tournament lineup this weekend, and incorporate, they want me to show Fantasy Labs and how I got there on the optimizer. So it was the front $4 tournament. I had 40 entries in it. And my top one finished 9th place. I won 300 off of it, so it's pretty exciting. I never really had a chance for first place. All my players ended at 4 o'clock, and I wasn't up there at the time, but it was a pretty good weekend for me. I did really good in cash. That was my biggest tournament win, so I had pretty good success just in tournaments in general this week. So yeah, let's get into it. I started out with Derek Carr. Everybody was going to be on Jameis and Evans, so I knew that would just reduce the ownership of Carr when he was in just as good a spot, going against the funnel defense of Tampa Bay. The ownership, 1/4 if you look at Fantasy Labs projected ownership, and that's what I used to check my ownership. I use the Adam Levitan model. I mess with the sliders sometimes over here, but you don't really have to, because you can see, you can look at the research just because it's broken down in here. You can see the opponent plus minus, you can see what their projections are of these players, what the projected ownership is, your snap. If you go over on this side, you have everything with Vegas, how they've been doing on the year, the players, their red zones. You could see any information you want is right here. So yeah, this is one of the reasons I love Fantasy Labs. You don't really have to go that far out of here unless you're looking into specific stuff. But anyway, alright, so Derek Carr, and then I just like Cooper this week more than Crabtree, just because how he didn't really perform last week against Jalen Ramsey. He got shut down a little bit, and I know they like to get Cooper involved, so whenever they can, if they're going in that kind of matchup, they're going to do it. They're going to feed him the ball, and that's exactly what happened here. So yeah, he was every Carr stack I had. It was with Cooper. That brings me to my running back. See, I actually went really chalky at running back. I went with Booker and Freeman. Booker, top value guy at home against San Diego, favorite. Couldn't really ask for anything more. I had 100% exposure to him. He was the only person on the weekend of that. And I just thought it was a really sharp and obvious play, and if it was going to screw me, then I think he had a floor of at least 10 points. So it wasn't going to destroy. I wouldn't have won a tournament with it, but I wouldn't have lost it. So I was hoping for 20 from him to try to give me a tournament. He got 18.4. Not bad. Freeman is just another obvious play. He catches a lot of passes. Coleman was out, so he was getting the full workload. And Green Bay, they're said to be a really tough run defense, but they've been against a lot of mediocre backs this year. And I still think they're a good run defense. I don't see that they're the best, really, and they're not really a defense I'd be scared of. So I didn't really worry about ownership in them spots, just because I knew I'd be contrarian in other places. And I knew Freeman would catch a lot of passes too. So yeah, really just main reason he was there. My next spot, which was the reason I didn't end up, winning one of these tournaments or finish into the very top, was Hopkins, and that was actually one of my, if not my favorite receiver this week. After we know Detroit's a terrible pass defense. The only person in their secondary that's even worth mentioning is Darius Slay, and after he got ruled out, I just loved Hopkins. You look at his game log the last 2 weeks too: 12 targets, 15 targets. They've been trying to feed him in tough matches against Vontae Davis, against Denver's corners. So I thought he would get minimum 10 targets, and Osweiler would feed him just like Hoyer did last year. It just ended up not playing like that. I had my top quarterback exposure was actually Osweiler. It just didn't pan out, So you can move off Hopkins. Yeah, and I knew he was gonna be. I didn't know how contrarian, but I knew a lot of people would be like loving Fuller. I liked Fuller too, but Hopkins was my favorite option. So then Moncrief was actually I knew he was gonna be super low owned. Kansas City sounds like a scary defense to most people, and they're good at home, but they're not near as good on the road. Moncrief was coming back from a shoulder injury, so I knew it wouldn't affect his route running or his hands of catching the ball. I knew he was in for a full workload. And if you actually look at week 1 and 2 when Moncrief was healthy, he was the Colts' best receiver. He was up there even better than Ty. He was performing better than Ty. And, luck at home is something I want exposure to, especially against so-called tough defense in Kansas City. So at 4%, I was really happy about that. He ended up getting a touchdown and gave me 14, so he did all right. I think, he had 4 catches on 9 targets, so that's really why I went there. And my biggest pivot was Travis Kelce off of the Barn Ridge, Jimmy Graham. I would say them were probably the 2 highest owned. But yeah, I loved Travis Kelce just because I feel the same way about Detroit as I do Indianapolis, and they're both terrible against tight ends. And we know Kelce's a freak of nature. It's only a matter of time until he really gets his week. And every year we see he has a week where he has a couple hundred yards or 100 yards, and he has maybe a touchdown or 2. And yeah, he had a huge week this week, and that really separated me from the crowd. Going down to Devontae Adams, I actually had a lot of exposure to Ty Montgomery and Devontae Adams, a mixture of both of them also, just because after Cobb was ruled out, Jordy Nelson getting shadowed by Desmond Trufant, highest total of the day. They're both going to be throwing the ball, and yeah, just Ty Montgomery and Devontae Adams were in line for a lot of passes. So about 3:30, that's when I seen Ty Montgomery got announced out. So I was scrambling from there on till the 4 o'clock game, 4:25 game. So I just pivoted this right over to Adams. So thankfully he was cheaper, so I could get to him, because that was surprising news. I guess with his kidney. So that worked out for me well. 19, and he could have had more. I mean, they were not one touchdown to him. If he catches one touchdown, 6 more points. But I'm not complaining about 12 receptions, 74 yards. That's a good game for him. And then my other biggest pivot that really separated me was right here, the Panthers defense at 4%. And I really got to them. The only reason I went with them is because, the traditional West Coast team traveling to the East Coast. Arizona just played a 5-quarter game, ended up tying. Carson Palmer hasn't looked sharp this whole year. You could just see that he's off. So, and I knew, they were a 3-point favorite at home, looking the way they've looked every week. Their defense hasn't been good, but it just screamed to me as a betting line, a really good spot. So, to me, that translated over to DFS, and knowing that offensive line isn't very good. Carson Palmer's been shaky. They're going to be on the road. Carolina's going to come out to play one of these games, and yeah, it just happened to be this game. I think they had 10 sacks too, which was huge. 8 sacks, okay. So 8 sacks, yeah, the touchdown was big. And them and Denver was actually my top 2 defenses this week at 4%. I couldn't ask for anything more. It was a really good performance from them. Yeah, but this is actually the first lineup review I've done ever, so through that now, hoping to get some feedback from everybody. But yeah, I think Fantasy Labs is awesome. Everybody should use Fantasy Labs. It's since I've started DFS, year and a half ago or so. I'm actually really big into it now, and I've been with Fantasy Labs. Bales, the reason I got into this is reading his books. So yeah. Couldn't say anything bad about Fantasy Labs, Adam Levitan, CSU Ram, Peter Jennings. Them 3 are just, yeah, they're really good at what they do. So this is the end of my lineup review, and I'm gonna post a cash. I'm gonna make a Roto-Grinders blog page and post a cash lineup review, just because I've had a lot of success in cash this year. So yeah, let me know if you like the video. I know there's things I gotta work on, start talking a little bit better, but yeah, thanks guys.